think sort of coming on to my first experience of sort of mental health or poor mental health, we moved from Wales and sort of darted over the border into sort of Herefordshire and Gloucestershire. And I don't know if you've ever been to a place called Simon's Yat, but it's a beautiful, beautiful setting in the Wye Valley. And basically where it is, the Wye Valley sort of meanders down the sort of Hereford and Wales. And then at Simon's Yat, it sort of comes off the floodplains into this wonderful sort of gorge. So you've got nice steep cliffs and beautiful views and vistas and things. And there was a pub there on the river, and we lived just behind the pub, and I was sort of working in the pub. And I remember to this day, actually, I thought you might ask me this. I was trying to recollect certain things about it. And I remember it was towards the end of the summer period. So it was normally packed. You know, all these people down the tiny little narrow road with the pub on one side and the river on the other. So you were always busy, you were always frantic running around, and you never really noticed anybody. And then towards the end of the season, you know, the sun was a bit lower in the sky, the leaves were off the trees, all that sort of lovely stuff. And people came down for that very reason. And I remember there was a guy that came in. He must have been probably mid-50s. And he came in and he sat in a particular window seat, which was just in front of the bar. And I remember sort of looking at him thinking, oh, he's lucky sod, looks like he's having a nice time. And I didn't think anything else of it. And I sort of looked back after an hour or so and realised he was still there. And he'd been coming backwards and forwards for drinks. He was by himself. He wasn't sort of doing anything. He was just sitting quietly. And he was... if I remember correctly, he was sort of muttering and sort of acting a little bit strangely. You know, he wasn't sort of just admiring the view. He was sort of, you could see him talking to himself in some way or another. And what sort of instigated what then followed on was he came to the bar and he said, "I'd like a pint of whiskey." And I was 18. Yeah, I'd been serving. You know, I loved the job. And, you know, being a barman was brilliant for various reasons. But I knew a pint of whiskey was wrong.
It's a lot.
Yeah. So I thought, well, I'll go and I had to say to him, look, that's not happening. But you know, is everything okay? And I can't remember the exact conversation, but what ended up happening was I went round to his side of the bar, sat down with him, gave him a pint of water, and I said, look, what's happening? What's going on? And it turns out he was going through a divorce, and he'd come down to Simon's Yat to throw himself off Yat Rock, which Yat Rock is this big sort of outcrop that every year we'd get ambulances and you know, the helicopter coming down because a climber inevitably would fall off it and they'd end up on the bottom, the rocks at the bottom. And that was very much he'd come to throw himself off and on the basis that he was going through this terrible divorce, and his key focus was his kids, his children. And my parents had probably been divorced maybe 5 years at that point. And over the duration of whatever it was, I can't remember how long it was, it must have been a good hour or so, I sort of said, you know, I didn't know what to do, but I just had to tell him what I thought, which was the best thing my dad did for us when my parents divorced was to hang around and actually be there for us. And we chatted around what he did and whatever. I remember he drove a particular car. It was a Saab estate with a green compressed gas sticker on the back of it, and in the end, I think I actually ended up driving it. I was quite excited at the time. I drove it from one car park to the other just because they're sealing up the other car park. And then we ended up calling one of his sons, and I believe they came down, picked him up, and that was it.
At 18, that's a jolting experience. I can't even think at 18. Yeah, I don't know anything like that. So that must have been for you. I can tell, like it's stuck with you.